and welcome everybody to this Finland Azure User Group live panel. Look at these people here going crazy. Now Jussi is smiling, that's big for Finnish people already. And today we will be talking about how to build and what is it about building intelligent solutions in Azure. Now, first we have the slide and it should be coming up to your screen fully at this moment. You can see the people we have. A Microsoft QR code to the source newsletter, and I will now applaud Microsoft for sponsoring this. Thank you, Microsoft. So we can do this semi-live panel and I can see these peeps that I haven't seen in months or in some cases even days. It's great to see these guys. And there we have the intelligent cloud maturity model, which is in this scenario we think a good place to start. Before we start to go forward though, let us see who we have here. My name is Sakari Nahi. I'm an Azure MVP, Microsoft Regional Director. I'm CEO at a company called Azure. And I will be facilitating this. Please, Jussi, introduce yourself.
Thank you, Sakke. Happy to be here, happy to be with everybody else here. My name is Jussi Roine. I work at Microsoft Finland as an Azure Developer Audience Lead.
Hi, I'm Johan Hegnim. I'm an amateur developer who has sometimes used Microsoft products. Well, that sometimes has ranged for like the last 20 years. I'm currently the CEO of Divisiona. I'm also a Microsoft Regional Director, and I love Azure. That's what Sakke told me to say.
He loves Azure. Oskari, please.
Fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone. Also on my behalf, my name is Oskari Heikkinen. Currently running my own company called DataBlink. I'm also a Microsoft MVP in Data Platform.
And hello everyone, my name is Vesa Tikkanen. I'm Data Platform MVP, self-employed, so doing things here and there mainly related to data.
Excellent. So as you could see, we have the right people to speak about intelligence in the cloud and building solutions with it. We have a Microsoft Azure developer person. We have an amateur developer in the form of Joni who has sometimes seen code during the 20 years. And then we have two data platform MVPs. And let's face it, with intelligence there comes a certain requirement for certain type of data. Before we go to questions, and if you have any questions, please send them to us in the YouTube talk. And Pasi Huuhka in the background will be blocking those and shouting them to us. And if we don't like them, we will just pretend we didn't hear anything. But if we like them, we will answer something nonsensical and you will be the winner. So, could I get again the slide to the screen with the intelligent cloud maturity model? So, if we look at that slide as an introduction to this talk, it's a very consultancy-like slide, and it begins from the bottom where the data, where the information we have is descriptive, and the intelligence in the application reacts to what has happened according to historical data. And this is in this intelligence maturity model, this is the lowest level of intelligence. Then we have the predictive, where a solution is predicting something to happen. Then there's prescriptive, where it says this will happen, and also it might tell you how to handle it. And then there's cognitive, orchestrating level, the top of this Maslow hierarchy, where the intelligence tells you this will happen soon, and this is what I will do about it. So this is a great bridge to the talk we will face in the next hour. And back to people, please. The talk, I'm hoping, will be something about Microsoft and Azure vision, of course. Where is the cloud going? What kind of intelligence can the cloud provide? But also, I would love if we talk a little bit about concrete examples and where the market really is, so that you people there watching and maybe later looking at this, you get an inkling on what's happening in the scene currently. Now, the first question we have to the esteemed panelists is, what do you guys think is an intelligent application? If we look at what Microsoft says in the marketing material, it's all intelligent cloud. Around intelligent clouds, there's intelligent edge. And inside that, there's Azure Stack and all of that stuff. And the intelligent cloud contains everything from virtual machines and network appliances to app services, Azure functions and whatnot. So it is hard to envision all of that would be intelligent. But before we go to Azure, let's have some kind of a talk on positioning. What is an intelligent app? Please feel free to now speak. I'm going to stop any second now.
Well, let me start by saying that I'm happy to let Jussi do the official positioning since he's the priest here. But from a practical perspective, on my lowest level of intelligence, where I typically operate, I think people talk about intelligent applications when they're talking about applications that are able to do decisions better than humans. And better may mean faster, or in a larger volume, or maybe with better results. I think the next definition of intelligence is something about being able to fix the model yourself, so the application should learn from its mistakes. And I'm not sure that's a good description of intelligent, but I think that's a workable description of intelligent because that means something to the actual solution developers.
That's a good point. Is it, Jouni, in your opinion, is it intelligence if a solution automates something in a manner that would have previously required a human to do a decision, and it wouldn't maybe be faster, it wouldn't maybe do it with huge volume, those examples you used, but instead it would free someone's time to do something else? Would that be a description of an intelligent solution?
Would an if-else statement be intelligent? I think that is the key question here, because I think we are ready to call something intelligent if the decision made by the application is somehow hard for the human to understand or make in real time. Mm-hmm. And if it's simply automation, I think that is different from intelligence.
Yeah. Vesa, please.
Yeah, I would add to the Jouni's definition, I would go even step lower. So if the app or the solution we are building is answering or doing things that we have not coded before. So if we have any kind of path that is not hard coded there, so we can prepare for a huge amount of issues, but we cannot prepare for infinite number of issues. And then if the application, even a small step, does something that can do a decision by itself, then I would define that as an intelligence, because then we don't know beforehand when we run the app, we don't know what the outcome would be.
Makes sense. Oskari.
I think this is a wonderful question to start with, because I think at the end of the day what we'll be learning is that we'll have 4 different definitions for this, which is fantastic. It sort of gives it away already that this is not something that's perhaps well defined at this point in time. How I would define it is I would define it as something that the end user defines or perceives to be intelligent action from his perspective, like regardless of the technology and how you actually implement it. And if you go down a level deeper, then you realize that if you have an intelligent enough simple if-else conditions, you can basically fulfill that definition. So it's not about the technology as such.
So to recap, Jouni said that there is a difference. If it's coded by a developer with if and else statements, then it might not be an intelligent app. Vesa said it's an intelligent app if we don't know what it does after we start it, so basically any app ever. So all apps are
No, I actually was in the same kind of path. That if it does something else than our if-else switch statements, then if we have a do something loop there.
That we haven't defined.
Yeah.
And Oskar is taking more of a human-centric, user-centric view, in a sense that if the user feels that, this is an intelligent decision by the solution, even though it was hard-coded, then it's still an intelligent solution. What's your take on this, Jussi? Which camp do you like?
So I like all of the camps, and today especially I'm super
Surprising.
happy.
Sorry.
I'm super happy I brought my Azure socks because they give me a bit more intelligence as well. I feel often that people have replaced in their minds intelligence with AI. So we used to keep talking about AI, and it was this mystic thing that you would sort of bolt on top of your application, and it would do something that nobody understood. And that gives you the nice news headlines. And for me, I often feel that intelligence in an app is something the user feels is happening as if by magic for them. Quick example with Microsoft Teams, you now have custom backgrounds, or you can blur the background. Meaning there's intelligence that spots your round face, well, not your round face, but somebody else's, okay. and then it blurs the background. That would be one example. And in a way, it's a fairly simple cognitive service function that's applied. But for the user, it feels as if this is magic. It's intelligent, it understands what's happening here. When you go deep down, you can sort of claim that it's a lot of if-elses in the background happening that you don't have to worry anymore about.
Yeah.
So perhaps to sort of recap this is that intelligence is something that delights the user, that goes beyond the expectation of a usual app.
Exactly.
My problem with the definition of an intelligent app is that everything that previously used to be called just data or statistics or whatever, it's now called intelligence. But if you're just doing some kind of linear analysis and predicting the future outcomes of something like maybe even weather or whatever, we've been doing that for like 50 years. What's so intelligent about it now?
Yeah, but it is, I think, it is a marketing term in the sense that Microsoft has the intelligent cloud and intelligent edge. So it is this big umbrella term that is being used for sales purposes as well. We all, as technically minded people, might think at a little bit lower level. But I agree with Jussi and Oscar in the sense that if I get, let's say I get 1,000 invoices a month, and someone hard codes me some kind of a solution that routes 950 of those invoices to correct locations without me doing anything, I would go like, God damn, that's one intelligent solution, and I would be happy about it. Okay, so if this is the broad description of intelligent solution that we are kind of disagreeing and agreeing with, seeing how it is an amorphous blob. What, Vesa, please do say one last thing about this topic.
I would say we agree, but we are in a different levels. So what you kind of in the very beginning said, actually kind of every one of us can see on his definition on the list, but.
Yeah, that is so true. I think we always agree, us five.
Yeah. Let me also add one thing.
Yes, you should.
So, if you Google for, Bing for Gartner hype cycle for artificial intelligence, you will find the typical Gartner chart, which is something like this, and there is the whole peak of unrealistic expectations, or whatever they call it. Intelligent apps is right at the top of the peak right now in the 2020 fall update. And we're going down the hill soon, so I think currently the term doesn't mean anything because it is so misused everywhere. And I think if you look at the hype chart for AI, I think the only thing that has reached the plateau of productivity is something like, I don't know, maybe graphics card accelerators or something like that. That is purely a technical term.
Yeah.
Nothing in terms of what we actually do in the AI has reached that level. And I think that is pretty telling.
But also there is, well, I'm going to continue a little bit, like we are talking about intelligent solutions, but there's something like smart buildings. And that does have a definition. In my mind, at least, a smart building has more of a definition than an intelligent solution. Now going forward, now we have viewers there who are, or watching this later, who are thinking that, hey, we will need some intelligence in our solution. Maybe they think that their problem is so complex, the domain is so difficult, that it needs intelligence, the app needs intelligence to be able to solve it. Or maybe they're thinking about sales purposes. They have a software as a service application or offering, and they want to add intelligence so they can market their solution as an intelligent solution. Does building an intelligent solution require anything special from the product management team from the product owner or the product designer or the business people who are saying, hey, we need an intelligent solution for this?
I think we'll let the data guys start with this.
Oh, that would be lovely. Oh, and Vesa's like, Oskari, what's up?
Hey, how are you doing? How to start off with that? You had quite a few questions in a row there, I think.
Do you want me to
roles
continue?
and different people. Absolutely, please do. Pick one.
Yeah. I think the issue is that now that we are talking about intelligent solutions and the definition is hard, it's also hard to say what kind of expectations building one intelligent solution sets. Maybe it's easier to think what kind of expectations it has for data people, because those are technical expectations. But does it require something from the organization itself to start building an intelligent solution? What kind of framework or support do we need?
Well, I think a good point to start with is to understand like what kind of problems you can solve today in addition to what you have been up to these days. So that would be the first starting point. Understand what you can do with the sort of artificial intelligence, for instance, today. So that you can get in the new understanding and perhaps come up with new business requirements that you then turn into technical requirements, and then have a look at like what is the actual like problem at hand, what kind of data do we need. So essentially turn that business problem into a data problem and then take it from there.
That's actually a very interesting question and a thought, because do you think organizations that are building solutions now or ordering them from vendors, do you think they have understanding on what is possible with, let's say, artificial intelligence that you referred to?
Depends on the maturity of the organization. I would say that some of the organizations are actually well versed and some are just taking their first steps and trying to figure out what does it actually mean, what are the new things that we can do today that we weren't able to do 6 or 7 years ago. So ultimately the organization is the people, right? So it depends on what kind of competencies do you have, and do you have the people who understand what you can build into your application today.
Yeah. To continue that, and before I let other people say their say, I lost my thought. You were looking at me too hard.
You were talking about the organization maturity, what they know and what were the expectations, and I would add to Oskari's comment that, as Oskari said, it varies a lot. The kind of what is the expectation, and then referring to what Jouni said, that we are now in the top of the hype curve. That also means that from the vendor side,
yes,
there is kind of huge variance in the kind of promises what they will offer. So there exist companies or vendors that kind of, we make your app intelligence without us knowing what it actually means, and then it's hard for customer to kind of say that or make the decision that what will I actually get from this, or what should I need. And then I would say that currently in many customers it actually requires from the vendor a huge positioning and support for kind of making the landscape that this is something we can do with your app. And then going back to the basics, that it actually making the app intelligence could mean very small things. So kind of making browsing the menus more easier, because we can predict that this is actually the path you will normally go, or pre-filling forms because we know where you are currently, so you don't need to type in the machine name every time because we know that you are in this building, or something like that. So kind of it could be very small things, and then we can actually call it an intelligent app.
And now I remember my question as well. It was related to that. If we now have a development director or some development decision maker, they're listening to us, what would be the first step an organization should take in going towards being well versed, like Oskari said, well versed in understanding the toolbox of artificial intelligence or other such buzzwords?
I think Jussi should take this one, since he knows everything about training in the Microsoft scene.
That's true.
Back in early 2000, I spent a lot of time with customers building intranets and extranets. And at the time, you would have perhaps one customer who says, could you add this sort of a button in the intranet page that we use for managing our projects or project portfolios? And you say, sure, I can add the button. What do you want the button to do? Well, it needs to complete these projects. Yeah, there's the challenge. And then they might argue that what's so hard about adding a button? It's just a simple HTML. And today I feel the same happens with intelligence and AI, that you need to have the data, you need to understand your own data, what can be utilized, what can be leveraged to actually build something. That's one bit. But at the same time, marketing, including Microsoft and everybody else, we are pushing you the sweet solutions that you can reach eventually if everything is optimally set. So we can say that by utilizing this and this platform, this is what you're going to get, and it's as easy as opening Visual Studio, going next, finish, reboot. And there's the disconnect in here. So you need to start from the grassroots, and if you're a developer decision maker listening to this, I often encourage customers to have a look what's already done and built in Azure Cognitive Services, in machine learning, and perhaps do a hackathon or build something over the weekend or within a week without really coding that much, just to see how those different building blocks fit together. Then you get a better understanding on what should we actually build and what brings business value for us.
And if I may add to that, I think Jussi's answer pretty well highlights the fact that there are some pieces of AI and some pieces of intelligence you can build pretty easily with just the technical pieces. For example, if your application can benefit from using computer vision, then yeah, go ahead. Azure Cognitive Services does that for you. You don't have to have much in terms of having your business owners aligned or anything like that, which was Saka's original question.
Yeah.
If you want to do something like maybe predict where your business is going or do predictive maintenance across hundreds of variables in a system where you actually need to understand all kinds of variables in the environment, then that needs some business people to come together and start talking about what kind of data quality we have and stuff like that. And those two are wholly different things, but they are both intelligent in some way.
Are you actually saying that for the business people, there's no difference to making a decision on building a solution or an intelligent solution, but for the developing team, for the people who will create it, it is their responsibility to manage the expectations of business by saying that, hey, we need to get familiar with the tooling first. We need to learn the toolbox that you just referred to and tell the business that, hey, this kind of thing that you are asking us for, this predictive thing, for example, it's possible, what we read, but we need to study some, and we need the time to study. But directly from the organization, it doesn't require anything else except business people coming in and telling them what's the business need. Vesa?
And now data platform MVP talk here, so...
Synapse.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
So,
too early?
Too early. From the business, if you kind of set up the requirements and then let the developers start learning, what you always need to do is that if you want that prediction for that predicted maintenance for some big machine, you would need something where the prediction is based on. So that comes to the data. So what business would require need to do beforehand is to prepare that we have kind of the tool within the toolbox. We have data available for doing those predictions. So kind of we can teach, if we go to the high level, we can teach a model with whatever data, but probably it's not the best predictions it will make based on for those maintenance tasks if it's not based on the real actual data. So
yeah, and to add to that, sort of from vendor perspective and like from customer perspective as well, in order to get good and accurate offers, the data is always the key. Like if you are able to show or identify your relevant data sets, what do you need in order for us to predict that one, and you're able to show that already up front, then you get much better, or the vendor is a lot better in setting up the expectations, what we can do with this and how long will it take. So that's probably one of the key things. Identify your key data sets up front. And then I think Joni also brought up another interesting sort of idea, at least implicitly, like it's a good idea to identify that which of your problems are general problems and which are specific to your company. For instance, the idea that Vesa mentioned about the maintenance, they're specific to your products that you're currently building. But then the general problems, such as predicting a person's age from a picture or from a video stream, that's a general problem. And the way I see it is, for instance, the cognitive services, they solve the general problems. And basically what I think will happen in this market is that all the problems that are general problems will be solved on a level that you couldn't do it yourself, just because you probably don't have the data available to do that yourself, even if you wanted to. So it's a good idea to know when to build yourself and when to actually use something that is already existing. What is a problem that has been already solved?
And if I may answer your original question, which was...
You may.
Thank you. I appreciate the offer. So you asked if it's an acceptable division of responsibility that the dev team should actually educate the business owners about how things should work, and then they should educate themselves about the tools. I think that's a bit unfair, because while it is possible to build a solution using bad data, it is impossible to build an intelligent solution using bad data. Mm-hmm. And when we come to data quality issues like this fine data gentleman talked about...
But can't Vesa fix those data quality issues?
No, he can't. Because the thing is that data quality is something for which the responsibility lies with the top management.
Yes.
And that cannot be fixed by a dev team. And if that thing is not understood, then any intelligent solution is bound to fail if you go into these specific issues and specific problems Oskar talked about.
Yes. Would you agree or think it's fair if I summarize this in 3 requirements? To build an intelligent app, we need the business people to come up with the problem domain in a business language, something business people can obviously do. They need to have the data set and high enough data quality to provide the base for the intelligence. And then the third one is, of course, the development team and the implementation and design team need to be given time to study and design this possibly very new kind of approach when compared to other solutions that the organization might have. Would you say these 3 high-level things are on par?
Yeah, definitely. And I would add to that perhaps like what is meant by high quality of data is a thing you always
flawless
throw at, but what does it mean? And in the context of, if we're trying to make a model to predict stuff, then what we want to have is a representative sample of the phenomena at hand, different scenarios that are actually happening in the data set. So if you're predicting, let's say, credit card frauds, then you want to have a data set that has all the possible known frauds already in it, and also a balanced data set, for instance, so that you're not having just, like, let's say 99 of your 100 samples is going to be exactly the same simple fraud case, but so that it doesn't overweight the model that you're building. So there are multiple angles to what it actually means in the context of building intelligent apps.
That's very interesting.
It's perhaps a bit similar to when a couple of years ago, or perhaps longer ago, we all started talking about Agile and Scrum, and it sort of evolved into DevOps. And before you knew it, everybody in your family, including that weird uncle you never talked to, would call you and say, "Hey, Jussi, I need DevOps. What's the tool that I need to deploy?" And it took a bit of time to realize it's a journey. It's a cultural change. It's not just a set of tools. And the same applies here. It's not just this or that combined with data. It's the whole package in the sense that you understand the data quality, you strive for that, but you also employ what's already available. And then you have a business embrace those and demand results from those.
Yeah. Sounds difficult. Let's dive deeper. Let's see if we can find clear-cut solutions to all of this, right? Right? Can't be bad. So when we think of developing or implementing a solution, like we've all been working with cloud for some years now, and there's this tenacious rumor or feeling that I still face with some developers or other people where they think that developing on the cloud is very different from developing on other things. When like 95% of the thing is still developing the same way as you would develop on premises. It's C#, it's Java, it's Python, it's JavaScript, it's whatnot, TypeScript, whatever. And then there are, of course, differences in how you package and how you deploy and what's the scalability model. And there's these new kinds of metrics and monitoring, all of that stuff. So there are a lot of differences, but still a lot of the daily work is very familiar to a person who's been developing or implementing something for a long time. SQL, T-SQL, isn't that different in the cloud as it is with the on-premise SQL server? I guess Vesa and Oskari will fix me soon. Anywho, so if that's the case and it's very similar, why does public cloud and especially Azure bring something to building an intelligent solution? And if it does bring something, what is it? Why should people there think about using Azure when they are thinking of intelligent solutions? Marketing first, then the rest.
Yeah, we can start with marketing first. I feel there are huge differences when you build for on-premises or the edge, as they say nowadays, or the cloud. Of course, there's technical differences and intricacies and all that.
On-premises Azure Stack here, right?
Yes.
Okay.
No other alternatives.
Cool.
And I feel we are all old enough to still remember the times when we actually had to order physical servers before virtualization was a thing. So when you choose the platform where you run, you often have a preferred choice. That might be Azure or it might be something else. I feel that with a public cloud combined with clever edge solutions, it removes a lot of that repetitive manual work that we used to do. And perhaps we could claim that that's our way of adding intelligence in between, that we can automate or script a lot of the things that we used to do by hand manually 10 times a day.
Oskari would agree because of his human-centric view of creating solutions, while of course Jouni and Vesa would totally disagree with you because of the scripting is hard-coded and declarative in that sense.
So let's hear the technical opinions.
Well, it's been such a fast slide for him because he would have been called a technical person 1 year ago. Now he's marketing.
Yes. And it felt good.
It did. I
Very
agree.
quick.
So, I think there are two aspects to using a public cloud. I think there's the two things are AaaS and abstraction. And the AaaS is as a service. So all of building something that is intelligent is based on iteration. You need to do something and then you need to try again and try again and try again. And the ability to build the resources fast and then make them disappear fast and try something else, that is something that public cloud allows you to do. I think that is fundamental for most teams. Because when I think about times before public cloud, how many companies actually had something like data analysis clusters? Very few. Even if you need a cluster these days, it takes like half an hour to spin it up. That's pretty fast. And the other thing is abstraction, because when we go to these general purpose problems, like computer vision or language understanding or speech recognition or whatever, the ability to just take those services and use them to do something whatever, like transcription or translation or grouping images, that is simply something that is, while you can do it using some kind of open source libraries you just picked up from NPM or NuGet or whatever, it is wholly different when you're actually able to provision the resources you need to do it like for 10,000 images in 1 minute. And I think that is different because it changes
the practical reality of developing stuff, because you don't have to have huge amount of resources in terms of physical hardware, nor do you have to have a lot of developers on the problem, because most of the problems have already been solved. So I think public cloud is really the key enabler here.
Cool. Thank you. And strong bullets. It's hard to argue against, even though I wish. Oskari.
So, cloud from data and analytics perspective, I'm going to go ahead and say that first of all, we get cheap storage. So it actually does make sense for many organizations to store all of their raw data and have it available whenever it may be required. And then scalability. We mentioned the clusters already. We can spin them up as we need and then shut them down when we no longer need that compute. To have the latest technology available, essentially to extend your architecture in a way that wouldn't be possible in an on-premise environment. So that whenever there's a new tech, it's a lot easier to take that into use in a cloud environment. And then you can scale, of course, your solution. The scalability is very, very key, because usually the amounts of data tend to grow over time. So that's very convenient to have that out of the box as well.
Very trustworthy. Vesa, do you feel you have something to add? I think this has been pretty exhaustive.
It's been quite complete. I would kind of continue, probably not add much, but continue from what Oskari said, is that for data tools, they are like evolving in a very fast speed today. And if you, I also kind of disagree on some things. So in bigger customers, they have the resources, or they have the compute resources. They could run some kind of clusters on premise. But then, okay, let's put the Hortonworks cluster, Hadoop cluster on premise, and then comes the new version. Okay, how do we upgrade this? What do we do this? And then we are on that kind of version forever. And when you think about the cloud, you take the drop-down menu and pick, okay, that's the version I will run next. And within the data tools, I would say that's a big thing. Let's take another example for the kind of not in an intelligence sense, but in the modeling view. So let's take the tabular engine. I have a customers running SQL Server analysis services, ongoing conversation that when can we upgrade, what are the risks or something. I would like to have this functionality available in the cloud. Okay, someone upgraded that week ago. Now we have the functionality available already. So kind of within the data tools, it has made it much more easier to kind of take those new things into production than it's been on the on-premise world. So I would say that that's kind of for data guy, because we are not building with the C# compiler from the scratch. We are using a lot of kind of pre-built tools and build on top of that, and that's kind of someone else is taking care of the lower level things.
In addition to cost effectivity with the storage, the cheap raw storage, the scalability, and this direct benefit of business continuity when you can upgrade the version and keep up to speed with the cloud when it's renewing under your solution all the time. It sounds to me like if someone came to you and said that, hey, we need this cognitive orchestrating service from the highest level of the cloud maturity developer model where a solution needs to tell me what will happen and then adjust automatically, and you already realize, oh my God, this will need a lot of data to have that kind of confidence in saying what will happen. Would you even entertain the thought of doing that on-prem? Like is it even feasible? Is public cloud such an enabler that a regular company outside of Pentagon shouldn't even consider the possibility of building their own cluster? Vesa?
You mentioned the Pentagon, but you kind of, from within that aspect, you don't have to be in Pentagon. There are still entities that kind of can just by legislation or by some kind of high availability requirements, because even though cloud doesn't go down more than a few times a year or something.
Yes. Mostly his fault, of course, yes.
Something, but the connection to the cloud can be a problem. Then we talk about the edge or other parts.
Mokkula is down.
Mokkula is down. There are things that are required on premise. They could be that they are part of the cloud, so the kind of hybrid thing. But anyway, kind of it's not pure cloud in many of the entities or companies.
In that kind of scenario, would you feel comfortable starting to build something that is very highly intelligent if you can't use the cloud benefits?
That's better question.
Thank you, sir.
So I would say that starting the journey is possible on the on-premise, but you will see some crossroad where kind of cloud just goes much faster, and then it would be easier if we could benefit or use the cloud resources.
So what I heard is no. I heard no.
No.
Yes, cool.
Would it be fair to say that it typically makes sense to start a project in the cloud where you can iterate fast and you can try all things, and if you come up with a stable solution that actually provides business benefit, then you could deploy a version of that on premises?
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. So especially in the data analytics field, you really see the benefits of cloud. It's like a prime example of all the things you are looking at when you're thinking about going to the cloud. So unless you have very special requirements, that would be my default solution. As Vesa mentioned, there are many organizations that do use the hybrid model there. So some of their data sets are still sitting on-prem, but they're extending to the cloud and using that to the fullest they can with their data set. So you need to identify what part of your data is sensitive and has different requirements, and which data sets you can actually move to the cloud and start using that. So most of my customers are in hybrid mode at the moment.
To build on top of this, I sometimes have developers reach out to me and ask that, hey Jussi, I downloaded Azure Stack, and what they mean is they downloaded the developer bits, and then they go to the hardware store and buy whatever rack server is needed with the required hardware in it, and by now they perhaps spend about $5,000 on it. Then they do the installation, and then they go, okay, now it's up and running, but how do I do X? And then I ask, so what are you planning to do, and what's the requirement here for Azure Stack specifically? Well, I just felt it would be nicer to have it here. And as Oskari said, perhaps start in the public cloud. And if you have data requirements, if you have business requirements that state that this needs to run in a different domain, it can be an oil tanker, it can be on top of Mount Everest, it can be something else, then you need to fit your solution to follow those restrictions. So it could be the newly announced MDC, the modular data center. That's one option. Of course, that's a hefty investment. Or it could be Azure Stack, which you go and buy from a qualified vendor, and that's that. It's not that different from public cloud. Or then you feel perhaps we can still run bits and pieces in the cloud, but these certain things with this certain set of data that we need to run in on-prem. And then you're free to choose what's the platform going to be.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you can, sir.
So, Vesa talked in length about how the upgrades to on-premises, say Hadoop clusters, are complicated. Jussi, do you think that Azure Stack would help in that regard? Would that be an argument for Azure Stack?
It could in certain conditions, meaning that once you deploy Azure Stack, obviously you're committed to that physical piece of hardware now, and then when Azure Stack receives an update, then you run through that update and you still have the same Azure portals and same tooling that you can then use to upgrade your Hadoop clusters and what have you. But it of course means that now it's tied into that specific piece of hardware. So you might perhaps need a second set of hardware or have enough capacity to run it side by side to test what the new releases are going to be.
Right.
This was nice. It took 44 minutes to get to "it depends" answer.
Yes.
I'm proud of you guys.
And it was the marketing guy who brought it up.
No, don't tease Jussi that way. So now I want you all to start thinking, what's your top one pick out of Azure you would recommend to our viewers regarding building intelligent apps? Now I'll give you some space to think about that while I recap some of the thoughts I heard that might be these top 1 picks, but I will take them away from you so you don't have them. So Jussi had this thing of educating developers by giving them time so that they can learn and play around with the easy intelligent services of Azure, like cognitive services and those that are easy to get to understand, and that way learn about the toolbox. How do you make possible fulfilling some business requirements? There was the top bit about the data set and data quality. That is key in creating something intelligent, so you guys can't pick that anymore. And then there was the specific and general on thinking about the issues, if they're specific to your organization or if they're more general in nature. So this top 1 pick can be a little known script in Azure, it can be a tooling thing, it can be a whole service, it can be something that make your life easy. But it can be anything that would be maybe something that a viewer there could Google right now and then find it and then have a thought. Or it can be thought-provoking and massive and life-forming. Vesa!
Yeah, and I raised the hand because now I can kind of pick the first one out of Oskari's pocket, so he will not yet know what I will tell. So hopefully it's not the same. So if you are starting a new thing and you are not kind of data scientist, you don't have data scientists in your organization, or you're not oriented in that direction. I personally believe a lot for the automated ML. So kind of new toolings that will describe you that tell me what the problem type is, give me the dataset, and I will figure out, so the service will figure out the kind of output that this is a good solution for you, because quite many of the problems are actually still mathematical problems or kind of hard problems to solve, and if some service can help there, that would actually kind of foster your journey to the models that will behave on their own or be intelligent. So automated ML is my choice. Google that.
If I Google Azure automated ML, is
twice in this session now. Google Bing.
You can use either one.
Bing it. No, but that was good and concrete. Thank you, Vesa. And free to go, anyone. Now everybody's looking at Oskari. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
So I think Vesa had a good pick on the machine learning side of things.
Was it the same pick?
Not gonna say that. I had nothing prepared, so no worries. So perhaps on the data side of things, I'm going there because sometimes, like what you want to do before even doing the analytics, you want to have a solid, scalable data platform on top of which you then build the analytics on. And on that side, I would suggest that you probably want to have a look at Delta Lake as a technology, a solution and format for storing your data into your Data Lake Gen 2 storage, as it's now called. So that's my
excellent tip. And continuous question, would you implement the Delta Lake abstraction or library through Azure Databricks, or would you use some other tool to create the Delta Lake abstraction layer for the data model?
Well, if I look a little bit of the history and understand where the Delta Lake came from, it was originally developed by Databricks and it was available on Databricks earlier than anywhere else. So to begin with, I'm not sure if that's still the case, but until recently, the only sort of a service on Azure that had the performance optimizations for that format was Databricks. So you would expect to get better performance with Delta Lake using Databricks. So that would be not entirely due to that reason, but somehow loosely coupled still, I would go with Databricks by default.
And now A very fair second continuous question. Azure Databricks, you are talking about service Azure Databricks. You are not talking about the older Databricks inside Synapse engine.
Yes, I'm talking about the Azure Databricks service right now.
Thank you, Oskari. You guys can go in.
That was pretty deep and personal, I think.
Yes.
I would actually like to say the basic storage services like, say, SQL database, Azure Storage, and Cosmos DB, because all of those are pretty great if you are actually a software developer trying to do something intelligent. You need to focus on modeling your data in an excellent way, and particularly Cosmos DB with its document-based format is actually pretty good for improving your data modeling. But since that would be too boring, I'm actually going to go with Azure Data Explorer, which is not a total surprise if somebody has been listening to Icona Studio, which I would also recommend. So Azure Data Explorer is an append-only storage for putting in a lot of data and then doing quick queries over it. It is the same syntax, the KQL, Custo Query language, which you're using with log analytics and application insights. And I would recommend that because it typically enables you to look through large masses of data and look for the correlations that might help you in building your AI model. So while ADX doesn't specifically help you build something intelligent, it often helps you in the exploration phase you typically need for the first stages of the development.
That was a great tip. Azure Data Explorer is, I think, underutilized service. Would you agree?
Yes, it is, definitely.
Would you also agree it's a little bit on the pricey side?
It is, but I don't think any project that actually needs intelligence is going to find cost prohibitive, particularly if you're using it for development purposes, because the development clusters start at something like 150 euros a month, and I think that is a fair cost for any project that wants to use AI.
If there's a team who now looks at Azure Data Explorer and loves Custo, like I think most developers who are familiar with Custo query language really like it because it's very performant, and they are doing explorative work on data, like you said, where it's good for. ADX, I think, might offer some APIs as well, so that it could be theoretically used in an operational capacity to respond to some queries from the client side. Is that something you would consider?
Yes, that is definitely a good scenario, but I'm not sure that would be the basis of my intelligent app, but it does help in a lot of other scenarios. And you can also export AGX data to Power BI, so that will also help you sort of publish the data inside the application, but I think that's a pretty different story.
Totally. Excellent tips. Now, the Grandmaster.
I've got two things. So first on the pricing bit that Joni raised here. When Azure Sentinel came out, which of course allows you to ingest and centralize all of your event logs and security related things, somebody complained, I think on Twitter, that if I'm ingesting 50 terabytes of syslog data per day, it will cost me X, and this is too much. And I figured if you have 50 terabytes of logs per day, then cost is not your main worry here. So I always feel you need to balance out what you're expecting and what you're planning on paying for it. But the recommendation I'm building on top of this gentleman here, Microsoft acquired a startup some time ago called Lobe, L-O-B-E. So if you go to lobe.ai, it allows you to create machine learning models without understanding what's data or how do you do queries or how do you actually define those. So what you do is you give Lobe, it's a Windows desktop application, you hand over your data, which typically is images or something similar, and then you tag or classify those images. And it builds a machine learning model that you can then deploy to a container, or you can deploy it to your favorite ML execution framework, just perhaps PyTorch or perhaps TensorFlow or something else. And then you can keep on retraining that when you get more data. And it's free of charge, it's in preview now. So all you have to do is download that, bring your data, create the model, and then you can put that model into any app to add that intelligence in your app.
Oh, nice. L-O-B-E, so earlobe, the thingy here without the ear word. Cool. Very good picks. My God, nice work. All right, I'm looking at the time. we have about 5 minutes of the official time left. Now, dear viewers, we will probably go a little bit over. You, of course, feel free to stop when you need to go to your next meeting. This video will be stored in Finland Azure User Group YouTube channel, and we will put the link up somewhere in Meetup at least, and you can check the rest of this later if you feel like it. Otherwise, we have a few things to go through still. And thank you for watching, and feel free to stay here if you want to. Now, when that is now said and done, next thing is, in your experience, what is the most common or some of the more common pitfalls when organizations are looking to create business value out of a solution that seems to require some level of intelligence that we really haven't defined? But let's say there's a Intelligence Z project and it fails. What is the reason? Why does it fail? Let's assume communication is, of course, number one reason, like in any project. But if so, what type of communication especially is missing in intelligence solution building projects or whatever else? Is the technical reason why it fails?
I wouldn't say that they necessarily fail per se as such. What becomes more difficult is then to scale the approach, and sort of when you go. So let's start from scratch. When you're doing your ML experiments, trying to figure out what is the best model for this purpose, you're going to be retraining model with different algorithms, for instance, several times, and it's impossible to know ahead of time which of the models is going to perform best. So you need a way to track those different experiments, like more specifically, what was the code, what was the configuration for it, what was the data that went into that model, so that you can actually reproduce the exact same model when you go back and realize that this is the model that I want to use. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing that is missing whenever you're running that is to have a standardized approach of moving those models into production. I think Jussi mentioned, for instance, that the organization may be using PyTorch, TensorFlow, scikit-learn, they may be using Spark and so on. And also they may be doing the ML in various environments. There may be the Kubernetes cluster, Spark cluster, so maybe doing it even just on their own laptops. So you have a wide variety of libraries and tools, and also different environments. So in order to have that managed, you need a standardized approach for that. So a model registry, basically, where you would track those, and after that you would have a pipeline forward to deploy, to have a standardized way of deploying a model into production after that. So that is definitely what I would have a look at if I'm working for an organization where they're thinking that, yeah, we want to build our intelligent application right now, because usually the sort of model performance starts to sort of drift over time, because the data changes, the environment changes, that where it's being used, and as a result you get worse and worse predictions over time. So at some point you want to probably retrain the model, and you want to have that in place as well. How do you know when you should retrain that model? So
you're talking about
monitoring as well. So MLOps as a concept,
yes,
would be the key here.
That's great insight. How, like Oskari, what's in your opinion, what is the maturity of MLOps in general in this space right now? Is that something most organizations are struggling with, or is that something where there are very clear blueprints and best practices already present?
I would say that definitely something that organizations are at the moment trying to figure out, or are starting to try to figure out what's the proper way of doing this actually. So that's also like, if you don't have that in place, then your model may not end up in production in the first phase. So you may be doing like a pilot after pilot after pilot if you don't figure out how do you operationalize that.
Exactly. I think this brings up another point, which may not be the most typical failure reason, but I think it's an issue with the ecosystem we're currently having. So when you are buying an AI solution or ML or whatever solution from somebody, who are you buying it from? Because there are a lot of small companies who are laser focused on a certain vertical. They have like 10 guys with PhDs who have been working on this particular problem for 25 years. And they are able to predict the wear of a whatever bolt or nut or whatever perfectly. So they're pretty good at that. But they may not have the tooling or the mindset to do MLOps, do data quality, do data ownership stuff. And if you buy AI from a company like that, then you may end up with the perfect algorithm, but not the ability to use it. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, if you buy your AI from a software company who may have like two guys who did their statistics course in the university and they are called data scientists now, they may be able to do some kind of algorithms and they may be able to build a framework around them, but though that doesn't maybe produce the business results you want. Mm. So that kind of leads into failed projects as well. And I think we as an ecosystem have not found the perfect way to match these AI super talents with the generic software development framework that is needed around the actual AI algorithm, plus the data quality concerns we already talked about at length.
Yeah.
Let me build on top of this. You mentioned business value, and I often find that when talking with clients and companies who are thinking of investing into something, if you ask, so what's the business value you're trying to reach here? How do you measure that? It hasn't been quantified. It's more or less more like, well, we feel it's good. Sure, but perhaps there's some intrinsic value that you're trying to reach here. So how are you measuring and tracking and following that? Because the technology we can always bend and fit to your needs, but it needs to align with whatever perceived value you're after. And if you can then measure that you're getting that value, then you can also say that technology is following what the business demands.
I think that ties into Oskar is saying about the thrift of the model. Because, okay, if the business value is that we need to predict the maintenance of a device so that it doesn't break and our maintenance people get there before it breaks down, then it's easy to follow and monitor that, okay, we are there before it breaks down, fine, it's working. Okay, it might be a year before it breaks down, but still it's kind of working. But if it's more hazy business value concept, like how do you even know it's thrifting if you don't understand the business requirement and what kind of goal you're looking for? But that's pretty much out of hands of the technical Azure people, of course.
Yeah,
often.
And often in the news you can sort of see that the business value that people feel AI and intelligence provide is when we can lay off people because we can automate their work. And I think that's the total opposite. The business value should come, how do we build our business to be more sustainable and perhaps more profitable in the future? And how does this solution support that?
Yes.
I haven't said anything about the pitfalls, so if I...
But that's you're the only person who hasn't seen any failed projects. Yeah, so I think that's natural.
That's true. But I would actually add that we've said that setting the expectations and the business value it could be a pitfall. The kind of tooling and the kind of whole pipeline can be a problem. But I would actually also add that today many pitfalls are because we are overselling things. So kind of setting the expectation to the correct level, that this is what we will actually achieve. So then coming to Joonis, who are you buying that from? Question is that actually other way around, that who are we selling this to? Because if we sell this to top management or top directors, we are selling the vision that this is something we are going to achieve, and then it's hard from the lower level to kind of, okay, I have these 3 columns in my data set, how the heck I will predict that one out of this
But if you have enough data, you will have a correlation. It might be.
Could be. Definitely, it could be. Or the correlation could be 0.5 or in the middle. So.
Totally true. All right. What do you think as the final recap for our last viewers there, if there's still anybody? If somebody's now watching who's very interested in building an intelligent application, so a developer, a data scientist, data engineer, some kind of a person like this who is thinking of her career or future in this field, what would be your recommendation in what they should study? How should they push themselves forward? I think Microsoft, for example, has a lot of material. Which of that is something that would be a good first step, for example, or something in that nature?
I can start with the softer topics first. So the Azure AI Fundamentals certification exam definitely is one to have a look at, as well as the Microsoft Learn resources, which are free. What I often encourage people is to reflect on the fact that not everybody working in tech and IT has to be a developer. But you need to understand what development is so that you can interact with those people, if you will. So make a clear distinction between, am I looking into cognitive services? Do I want to go deeper? Do I want to build my own algorithms? And regardless which path you choose, you can go through both of those. Also try to apply those in the edge, meaning in old school way we would say on premises. That way you can be more fluid in applying those skills regardless of what the platform, what the environment is going to be. So you don't have to be a data scientist, but you have to understand the basics in order to capitalize on the services that are available.
Exactly. Great advice. What about the rest of the guys? Do you have any hints on how a starting data person could go forward? Start hacking, eh?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think Jussi's answer was great because it contained all the resources I would have mentioned as well, plus some others. I think the key thing is to start doing stuff because, as we already talked about, public cloud enables you to go fast and try things. And if you want to do a simple experiment, it takes you maybe 5 hours. That's not that much of a time. Then you know something about that. Then just move on to the next one. I think after doing like 3 or 5 experiments, you will realize that there is this one small set of data in my application which I would like to work more on. And then you will already have an idea what to do with the data. And that is already half a step towards a productive solution.
For sure. Is there an easy way to being a data expert like you guys? Something that would took, let's say I don't have anything on Saturday, so if I spend my Saturday on data things.
Sort of have another perspective on that. In the field of data, you do have several roles, just as well as in the like normal dev work. So you focus on some specific area more to build that T model. So like, what would you give us as an advice for your children? Probably you should study what you're interested in, right? So figure out the field that you're interested in and figure out like, so what types of things am I expected to understand and know in this role? What would the actual work consist of? What kind of things would I be building in reality, and what am I missing? What should I learn more to really grasp the entire area?
Yeah. So bespoke integrations, you are saying?
Maybe if it suits you.
That would be a future thing.
Yeah. Good start.
I would recommend everyone to be open for new things. That's actually a big thing. So if we look past, if we kind of born as a C# developer, we have been a C# developer for a decade or something, and I would see that coming to the end of somehow. So we definitely will be a C# developer in future also, but in addition to that, I would like everyone to be open for new things. In data related things, there are kind of being T-SQL persons and integrator persons and modeling persons, and they kind of are in their own world. And now going forward, you need to look for all the parts. So as an example, that C# example, a few years ago, Microsoft bought Revolution Analytics. I was raising my hand and saying that R is everywhere. You should kind of go that path. Didn't work well. I would say afterwards. Now
too early.
Too early could be in future. But now it's like, if I would be a C# developer and looking for modeling ML things, I would go for Python related things. So kind of be open. Could that be in 2 years' time something else? Could be, but be open for new things, and kind of if iterative means you build something and fail fast, now it's kind of iterative in your own skill set also, that you need to learn new things, but kind of don't fall in love too much of them, so that you can start doing something else if that's the future.
Yeah.
Perhaps quickly to add on all of this is what really allows me to keep on learning is to give myself a permission to keep it fun. So whatever you choose to learn, come up with fun scenarios on what can I build. A quick example, I needed to do a data visualization on some set of data that I already had. The usual way is to open Excel or Power BI and do those pie charts that everybody does. And I figured the audience at the time, they needed to see something else. So what I did is I visualized all of that in Minecraft. So I built a connector from my dataset to Minecraft, so whenever something happened with the data, it would be reflected in Minecraft with amount of things happening in there. It was super simple, but it forces you to learn something new, and then you make it more fun, and when it's fun, it doesn't feel like studying anymore.
That's good insight. And I think...
Except the pie chart.
Pie chart is fine. What I wanted to... The failing that Vesa referred to is I think a big point, and I think we as a society, especially with our kids and younger people and young professionals who might have inordinate amounts of stress in thinking that I need to succeed, I need to hack this thing, I need to learn this thing fast, I need to be good at this. Those people are good at that. Why I'm here? I need to get better and I can't fail. When actually failing is basically the only way we really learn. So failing equates to learning, and I think it would be great if we as a society would be kind of accepting of the failure and kind of looking for the failure as well, because the life Vesa and Jussi just now envisioned is the kind where you try all new things all the time. And trying all new things means learning, and when you learn something new, you fail during the first couple of times. And then if you get discouraged and wait something else to happen, to be successful every time and all the time, then that's not the way to learn, that's just the way to be depressed. So I think that was our panel. I thank the panelists, I thank the viewers. And
both of the viewers.
Both of the viewers, thank you both. And keep on failing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.